So are you suffering from ageism or age discrimination? Have you been laid off lately? Are you over 50, having trouble getting work? I've got some tips on how to apply for jobs and tips on what to do in job interviews. So stay with me and I'll go through some points. So hopefully there'll be a few that you actually don't know. So one of the first things to get ready for is your resume, because that's how you put yourself forward when you're applying for a job. And the very first thing you should be aware of is that when you make an application now with your resume, it's not a human reading it, it's software reading it. So they have this software called a ATS, or applicant tracking system. I'm going to pop up a list of the most common ones as cited by Forbes. So these systems basically work by pulling out relevant keywords as compared to what the job is actually looking for. So if your resume is out of date or hasn't got the right keywords or is in a structure that is hard to understand for a bot, you're not going to get anywhere. You won't even get to the stage where a human's going to be looking at your resume. So the first thing is to make your resume applicant tracking system friendly. I've gone through an example here on ChatGPT just to show you what I mean. So here I'm telling ChatGPT to just give an example job description of how someone would write it 25 years ago. So when you look at it, at first glance, it looks fine, doesn't it? As it says down the bottom, it's printed on paper, gives concise bullet points and responsibilities and achievements. Well, that's not enough for these bots now, so I then made a little script in ChatGPT to modernize that, to update the answer to be in a more modern format, and also to be applicant tracking system aware, or to optimize the keywords to suit that type of system. So at first glance, it really doesn't look that much different, does it? You see here the tips here. Don't get too fancy. Just use standard basic headings so the actual bot will know what you're talking about. And don't put it in tables. Keep it simple. Don't use images. So those sort of things are hard to scan and the bot won't know what you're talking about. So first off, put your resume through this. So if you're not comfortable using ChatGPT, there is some other software that does this. So I had a quick scan, and there's some software called jobscan.co. It will actually scan your resume and into a friendly ATS format. So it's all about the keywords. So I did have a look. They do have a free plan where you can put up 2 resumes. You can have 2 resume scans per month. So that's a good place to get started, I think. Of course, probably the easiest option is just to use ChatGPT. You can just copy and paste, one job at a time and update it that way. Yeah, so also when it comes to your resume, try and make it modern looking. Remove all the formatting, even tables, to keep it really simple. Nice, straightforward bullet points if possible. Don't make a wall of text like a 20-line long paragraph describing your skills. No one's going to read it. Trust me, I've seen people look at my resumes and they gloss straight over it. People want bullet points, short and concise. So remove any reference to years out of your resume. Remove the years that you did any formal qualifications, so not to give people a clue as to how old you are. Try and focus on the skills you have rather than how much experience you've had. And also, if you've worked for longer than 20 years, just cut anything that's older than that, just cut it completely out of your resume. And also try and keep your resume to a maximum of 2 pages. I'm sorry to say, but that's about all the attention span most recruiters have, is 2 pages. So when you put your contact details on a resume, use a mobile phone number, use an email. Don't use antiquated stuff because it's going to come across to the recruiter that you're out of date and you're not willing to modernize. So don't put your fax number on there. If possible, try not to use a Yahoo or AOL account or a Hotmail. I recommend just using an Outlook account or a Gmail, or you can use one of those free secure ones if you're more concerned about security. So when you do a cover letter, try and emphasize that you're keen to learn and you're motivated and you're enthusiastic. You got lots of energy. So try and portray that you have a positive attitude towards this job and that you really want it. That goes a long way. Also, if you are part of a good job network, try and get a job through a friend. I can't say how important that is. If you get jobs through referrals, a lot of the age barriers are just going to disappear because word of mouth is very important when it comes to getting a job. Yeah, so try and keep up to date with technology. I know it's hard, but at least basic things, like using all the modern office tools and be comfortable using emails and all that type of stuff. Printing documents, scanning documents, all that type of stuff. And also, as a first point of attack, maybe consider looking at freelance or contract work. Those type of positions are far less likely to be subject to age discrimination or ageism. So now that you've applied for a job and you've actually gotten a response back and they've called you in for an interview, there's a couple of points here that you should be aware of, which I'll just go through now, which will definitely help you lessen that barrier to age discrimination. So there's one question that stands out, which a lot of interviewers ask, and they ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? When I was younger, I always used to aim above the position, so I would say something like, I see myself becoming a senior in this and maybe managing this area and increasing my studies and that type of stuff. But when you're approaching retirement and getting much older, I think it's probably wise not to say that, because a lot of people you need to suss out the company too. So a lot of them might be looking for someone that wants to move forward, but if you're an older person, they're probably just looking for someone that will stay in the position and be reliable. So that's why you're being chosen. In that case, I would just say that you're happy to just be a worker bee and follow your studies and just continue working for a company that encourages loyalty and that type of stuff. So you can do something along those lines. Whatever you do, don't say something like, in 5 years' time I see myself retired, because I'm pretty sure making that type of remark is not going to get you anywhere, because they know you're only going to stay for a short time and then you're hopping off to do something else. I know that's sort of a bit counterintuitive to the modern environment where everyone only stays a couple of years anyway, but even though that's what people do, recruiters don't like to think that way. They're always looking for a reliable person, even though they never get it. So also when you go to an interview, don't try and ramble on. I know a lot of people do that. They tend to ramble. I do too. So I guess you just have a lot to say. So just try and keep the point short and quick. If you pay attention to the interviewer and they look like their eyes are glazing over or they're looking disinterested, then you're probably lost the interview because you've already bored them to death. Don't do that. So also don't try and appear desperate. What I mean by that is that you're just applying for every type of job possible and just trying to get anything, because you desperately need a job, which is a very valid point. I mean, I do the same thing. but just don't appear to be that way in front of the interviewer because, to them, their job is special and they don't want just anyone feeling it as something temporary until they can get something better. This goes without saying for anybody. Don't bring politics into it. Don't bring religion into it. I remember once I went for a job interview and the person was a very strong Christian and he used to play very loud Christian music. So he was straight away pretty much limiting the type of people that he could employ. And he had a very strong bias about those sort of the people he would put on as well. So don't exclude yourself by stating what political party you align with, because you really don't know what's on their mind. Also, as we're getting older, we've all got our little problems, like sore joints or, cardiovascular problems or metabolic issues or diabetes or poor eyesight or things like that. If a job doesn't specifically ask if you have those problems, don't mention them and don't talk about them. Last thing you want is an employer thinking that you're going to be off sick all the time because you've got a lot of medical problems. And I found what's worked for me in the past is to show your enthusiasm and show that you're willing to learn. To me, that counts a lot, especially if people get the impression that you're a quick learner and you're willing to learn, then probably willing to bygone some of the experiences that you lacked for this position. And also try and be friends with the interviewer as well. Try and speak to him at his level, because people won't interview people, but no matter how smart they are or how perfect they are for the job, they're not going to interview them if the interviewee rubs the interviewer the wrong way, or there's some sort of personality clash going on. Try and be his best friend and try and be really nice and come across as a very agreeable person who works good in the team, and he'll make his job very easy. Yeah, so those are my tips. If I've left anything out, this is mainly for older people, but if I've left anything out, please drop a comment and let me know, and please subscribe, and thanks for watching.